reading since I was a kid, and it has added so much value to my life. Be it fiction or non-fiction, reading can really change your life. It not only adds value to your life, it helps you to increase your knowledge, relieves your stress, relaxes your mind, increases your vocabulary. The list just goes on and on. And so, in this video, I'll be sharing with you 8 tips on how you can read more. That is, how you can include reading in your daily schedule. The goal is not to read a particular number of books, it's not to read 100 books a year or 20 books a year. It is just how you can incorporate reading every single day so that it becomes a habit and comes naturally to you. So let's get started. My tip number 1 is to set reading goals. We all know how important goal setting is in our life. I have talked about it so many times on my Instagram and as well as on my YouTube channel. But why don't we make goals when it comes to reading? Making reading goals can really change the game. It will motivate you to read even more. So your first step is take a sheet of paper or your to-do list or Notion, wherever it is that you write your goals, and write down whatever reading goals that first come to your head. It can be anything. For example, read 50 books a year if that is something that works for you, or read more non-fiction books, or read more fiction books, or read more classic books, whatever your goals are. Now, your step number 2 is to break down these goals into small habits. Now, these are the habits that you can incorporate in your daily life. Now, you can also write a weekly habit or a daily habit. I just like to keep it simple and write a daily habit. Now, let's come to step number 3, or what kind of habits you can incorporate in your daily life. Now, your step number 3 is to create habits. So, what I like to do is keeping it very simple, and my reading goals on a daily basis looks like read 30 pages every single day. So, you can do that, or you can also do read for 30 minutes every single day before I go to bed. Anything that works for you. So once you have broken down your goal into different habits, the next step is to track your progress. Now for this, I really like to use habit trackers and challenge trackers. So as the name suggests, a habit tracker is something that helps you track your progress, that helps you track the progress that you are making when it comes to a particular habit. So essentially, you have a habit, which can be any habit, for example, reading in our case, and in front of that, you have a sort of a calendar where you just put a cross on each and every day of the month where you followed that habit. It is a great way of having a direct look on what are the days on which you have followed your habit and which days you weren't able to. So it is a great way of holding yourself accountable. I will leave a link for habit tracker and a challenge tracker down in the description box down below, so don't forget to check them out. My tip number 2 is to incorporate reading into your schedule. So once you have written down your habit in your habit tracker, it is not enough. What you need to do is write that habit into your schedule as well. So whenever you make your schedule, be it a to-do list or maybe you use Notion or you block your Google Calendar, whatever it is, always remember to write down reading. Just because it is not related to your work or your study doesn't mean that it is not important if that is something that you want to work on. So it is equally important. And so make it a point to always include that. This will make sure that you don't forget reading every single day. Important to follow a task or an activity, anything that you want to create a habit for around 60 to 66 days before it becomes a habit. That is before it comes naturally to you. And so when you include reading into your schedule, it will give you a very clear idea that this is something that you have to do on this particular day. So it is something that you need to strike off your to-do list. There are 3 things that you need to keep in mind. First is to choose a time that works the best for you. It can be early in the morning or during a lunch break or before you go to bed. Personally, I read for 30 to 40 minutes before I go to bed. That works the best for me because firstly, it keeps my phone away from me, and reading is something that I love to do. So ending my day or while reading really helps me to end my day on a positive note and thus start my next day on an equally positive note. The second is to make it non-negotiable. Like I said, just because it is not related to your work or your study, but if it is something that you really want to work upon, then it is important that you treat it as something which is equally important. So, avoid ignoring your reading time. It is also important. And that's why I mentioned to always write your reading time in your to-do list so that it is something that you need to strike off at the end of the day. Third is to utilize downtime. Now, if you're someone who has no time to read, you're saying to me that you come back home tired, then you go to the gym, and then you have to study or work on something else. So you cannot take out 30 minutes of your day to read. it's completely fine. There are so many instances that happens during the day when which is basically considered your downtime. For example, when you're commuting, or when you're having your breakfast, or when you're having your lunch, or when you are standing in a particular queue, anything. There are so many such instances, and thus you can utilize these times to read whatever you want to. And thus you can incorporate reading in such downtime. My tip number three is to make reading more accessible. Now, what I mean by that is, if you are a physical book reader like I am, what really helps is carrying a book wherever I go. No matter whether I'm going to work, or I'm going to a cafe, whether I'm going to a friend's place, or to a doctor's appointment, I always carry a book with me because I know that I will get some time to read. Maybe it is while I'm waiting for my, waiting at the doctor appointment, or if I am commuting, so if I'm sitting in the train, or whatever it is, I will get some time to read. So that really helps. For example, I'm in Bangalore right now. I'm not in Delhi. I'm at a friend's place. So I have carried 4 to 5 books with me because I don't want to create that friction for me that I don't have books, so I can't read. So I always carry books with me because you do get time to read if you take out time. By the way, my friend and I just finished a 24-hour reading challenge. So if that is something that you would be interested in, I will leave the link in the description box and in the cards above. So do check that out. But if you tell me that I am not a physical book reader, then I would highly recommend you to get a Kindle. The friend that I'm living with currently in Bangalore has a Kindle, and it has completely changed my mind about getting one. I have always been a physical book lover, but Kindle is just so convenient. I've also been thinking of getting a Kindle in the coming days. It just sounds so convenient. It is so compact, so light. You can carry it everywhere you go. You don't have to carry around so many physical books with you. You just have thousands of books in your Kindle. So if convenience is something that is, becoming a hindrance to you when it comes to reading, then I would highly recommend you to get a Kindle. Another thing that you can do to make reading more accessible is to keep a book or two on your nightstand, or your Kindle on your nightstand. This will make sure that it is something that you have in your head that, yeah, I have to go and read before I go to bed. So you are reducing that friction, that early friction of you picking up a book, opening it, and reading, because first of all, a book is directly there, near your bed. So it becomes very easy for you to reduce that friction. Similarly, you can also reduce this friction between you and reading with your phone. So what you can do is include apps like Kindle or Audible or Spotify on your home screen. The main idea is that if there is a particular habit that you want to build, what you need to do is reduce the friction between you and that habit. And if there is a particular habit that you want to get rid of, you need to increase that friction. So that's why I mentioned to include reading apps on your home screen and move all the other apps, distracting apps like your social media, like Instagram or Twitter or Pinterest, whatever it is that you waste most of your time on. Move that from your home screen and to either a different folder, or it is something that you need to search for before you open that app. My tip number four is to choose the right books. It is very important that you choose the books that genuinely interest you and excite you. Don't think that you have to read smart books in order to be called a reader. Don't think that you need to read a lot of non-fiction books or a lot of classic books, because those are books that are considered to be smart or considered to be harder to read as compared to, fiction books. It is nothing like that. If there is a book that you want to read and that genuinely excites you, just go and read it. Do not think that people will judge me, or I need to read this book because under peer pressure, or people will make fun of me if I tell them that I love to read romance novels. Don't care about such people. Personally, I love to read fantasy books and thriller books, and I read them mostly. I read them 98% of the time because those are the books that I genuinely enjoy. And I throw in non-fiction books here and there to increase my knowledge, and it helps me with my work of being a productivity YouTuber and content creator. Now, if you are a beginner, you can experiment with different genres to see what works for you the best. Do let me know if you want me to create a video on book recommendations for beginners. My tip number five is, it is completely okay to DNF books. DNF basically means did not finish. So when you DNF a book, it means that you abandoned it in the middle. Now, we all have this notion in our heads that once we start a book, we cannot quit. But it is so wrong. It is absolutely not essential for you to finish a particular book, even though you are not liking it so much. This will only make it feel like a chore or a work that you have to do, no matter if you are really into it or not. So, what really goes on in our minds is that once we like spend an hour on a book or read 50 to 60 pages of a book, we just keep waiting for it to get better, but it just never does. Because if a book is not able to grab your attention within 50 to 60 pages, believe me, it won't be able to even if you read 200 or 300 or the full book. You will only end up regretting that you wasted so much time. So even if you have spent 1 hour on a particular book, doesn't mean that you need to waste 2 or 3 hours more on that book. If you hate quitting books and makes you feel like a quitter or that you are doing the author injustice or whatever it is, just keep this mindset of you are not liking it right now, but you might pick it up later on. So there are certain books that you are just not feeling, at the particular moment, but it doesn't mean that you are never going to pick it up. It has happened to me so many times. For example, when I was reading The Invisible Life of Annie Leroux, I was reading that and I read for like 100 pages and I was just completely not feeling that book and I just kept it aside. But I was revisited that book after a month and I ended up liking it a lot. I gave that book 3.5 or I think 4 stars. So that really happens a lot. So if a particular book is not working out for you right now, it doesn't mean that you won't read it forever. My next tip is to use audiobooks. Yes, audiobooks do count as reading, and you should never listen to those people who say otherwise. Audiobooks are absolutely life changing. I love listening to audiobooks. Personally, I like to use Audible for my audiobooks, but you can also go to Spotify Premium and I think Speechify also has some audiobooks. What I love about audiobooks is that you can read wherever you go, no matter what you are doing. If you are doing a mindless activity like you're cleaning your house or you're doing laundry, washing dishes, or you are doing you are in the middle of a commute and holding a book or a Kindle while you're walking is obviously not at all possible. And if reading a book gives you motion sickness when you are in the car or in a moving train or whatever, audiobooks can really be your lifesaver and help improve your reading to a huge extent. I read around 2 audiobooks every single month because it is just so convenient. My next tip is to use Goodreads. I noticed a significant improvement in my reading once I started using Goodreads. Goodreads, if you guys don't know, I am sure you all must have heard of it if you like reading or want to get into it. It is basically an app that lets you rate books. You can see other people's ratings, reviews. You can write your own reviews. You can create different shelves. You can track your progress. You can create your reading goals and so on. What I don't like about it is that you cannot give ratings in stars like 3.5 or 4.5. You have to round it off to either 4 or 5. But apart from that, it is a great book to track your reading. What I use Goodreads for is to create a reading goal. I have currently created a reading goal of I think around 40 or 50 books. I don't remember. So it is a great way that keeps me motivated that, okay, I have read 10 books and it will tell you that this percent of this much percent of your goal you have completed or you have these many books left and so on. Plus I love to read other people's reviews. Once I have read a particular book, I can write my own review. If someone writes a spoiler review, there's also an option to choose that this review contains the spoiler so that it doesn't ruin the book for the other person reading it. So in short, it is a great app. It just makes it very fun and very interesting for you to reading. It just makes it like a game. So I would highly, highly recommend you to start using Goodreads if reading is something that you are struggling with right now. My last tip, but I feel it is one of the most important ones, is your mindset. You need to shift your mindset. So instead of saying things like, I can't read, or reading is not for me, I cannot become a reader, it is so hard, just shift your mindset to a little positive note. Instead of saying all of these things, say, like, I am trying to become a reader, or I love reading, I like reading, it is a little hard for me, but I'm working on it. So, how you perceive yourself, your identity, and your mindset really plays a huge role. Another thing in this is to never ever compare. If you go on Bookstagram, you will see people reading 200, 300 books in a month, sorry, in a year, which it just seems like an impossible number for me to reach. So you will meet people like that as well. So it is important to know that I don't know if they are a very fast reader or if that is something that they do or whatever it is, how they're managing their downtime, their daily schedules. We don't know that. So But everyone's life is different, right? Their lives are different, your life is different, your routines are different, their routines are different. So you cannot really compare your reading with other person's reading. So instead of chasing numbers, or instead of comparing yourself on, oh my god, you read so many books, I was not able to read that, I read only like 2 books in a month. It's completely fine. Even if you're reading like 1 book every single month, if you're reading 100 books in a year, or if you're reading 1 book in a year, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you enjoyed yourself. What matters is that it was a book that really gave some value to your life. You learned something from it, or you enjoyed it thoroughly. Thus, stop chasing numbers and instead enjoy this journey, enjoy reading. So, that is all I have for you in this video. Let me know in the comments down below what book you're currently reading, or which book you are really excited to read. And I will see you in my next video.